I was sitting in the bathtub fighting off the pain from nerves when I heard my wife in the next room say to our son, "If he dies, we get the insurance. If he lives, we get debt. Either way, we win." They laughed. My son laughed. I stayed underwater for 40 seconds just to practice what silence felt like. The medical bills from my recent diagnosis were crushing us all. What they did not know was that I had a plan of my own. Where are you watching from? Drop a like and subscribe if you have ever discovered something you were never meant to hear. For 15 years, I thought I had built the perfect life. As a construction manager at Wilson Brothers Development, I had worked my way up from swinging hammers to overseeing multi-million-dollar projects across 3 states. The steady income allowed me to provide a comfortable life for my family in our suburban home just outside of Portland. Amanda and I had met in college, married young, and welcomed our son Jackson a year later. Now at 14, Jackson was growing into a thoughtful young man, with his mother's sharp wit and my stubbornness. Everything changed 6 months ago, during our anniversary trip to Maine. What started as a slight tremor in my right hand evolved into shooting pain down my arm within weeks. At first, I dismissed it as strain from an old construction injury. But when the pain began spreading to my legs and back, Amanda insisted I see a specialist. Dr. Willis diagnosed me with Larson syndrome, a rare degenerative nervous system condition. The words fell like hammers as he explained how my body was essentially turning against itself, with nerves misfiring and causing increasing pain and eventual mobility issues. The condition was rare enough that treatments were still experimental, meaning expensive, and mostly uncovered by insurance. "We will fight this together," Amanda had promised, squeezing my hand in the doctor's office. Her blue eyes filled with tears, but her voice remained steady. For better or worse, remember, the first months were actually filled with hope. Despite the diagnosis, I believed we could overcome anything as a family. Amanda managed my growing collection of medications, researched alternative treatments, and attended every appointment. Jackson started spending evenings playing chess with me instead of video gaming with his friends, claiming he wanted to kick my butt while I could still concentrate. My best friend Tom visited regularly despite my increasingly frequent bad days when the pain made me poor company. You would do the same for me. He insisted bringing takeout from our favorite barbecue joint and catching me up on workplace gossip. The only dark cloud was financial. My condition required me to cut back hours significantly, while the medical bills piled higher each week. Our insurance fought every claim, calling treatments experimental and denying coverage. I watched our savings dwindle as Amanda grew quieter each time she paid the bills. Still, I believed we were growing closer through adversity. When Jackson helped me to the bathroom during particularly bad episodes, I saw the man he was becoming. When Amanda massaged my legs to ease the cramping, I felt gratitude for our vows. Dr. Willis continued offering hope through new treatment options, and I trusted him completely with my care. That evening, I decided to take a hot bath to ease the nerve pain radiating through my lower back. As I lowered myself into the steaming water, wincing as the heat hit my sensitive skin, I could hear Amanda and Jackson watching television in the adjacent bedroom. Their familiar voices provided comfort as I submerged myself, seeking relief from the constant pain that had become my unwanted companion. I never meant to eavesdrop. The bathroom wall shared with our bedroom was thin enough that conversations carried when the house was quiet. I had just dunked my head underwater briefly, trying to block out the pain when I resurfaced and heard Amanda's voice crystal clear and unmistakable. "If he dies, we get the insurance. If he lives, we get debt. Either way, we win." Then laughter. Both of them. The sound of my 14-year-old son, laughing at the prospect of my death, sent ice through my veins, despite the hot water surrounding me. "How much longer do you think it will take?" Jackson asked, his voice dropping lower. "Doctor, Willis says the condition typically accelerates within a year," Amanda replied, matter-of-factly. "But we need to be patient. Everything has to look natural." I slid back underwater, counting the seconds, practicing what silence would feel like. 1, 2, 3, all the way to 40 before my lungs burned for air. When I emerged, they had moved to another topic discussing some show they were watching together. That night, I played my part perfectly. I smiled weakly as Amanda helped me into bed, thanked her for the glass of water and pills she handed me. I pretended not to notice how she watched, to make sure I swallowed every last one. I hugged Jackson goodnight when he came in to check on me, searching his young face for any sign of guilt or deception. There was none. Just the practiced concern I now realized he had been performing for weeks. The next morning, while Amanda took Jackson to school, I dragged myself to our home office despite the pain lancing through my legs. Opening her laptop was surprisingly easy. She had used Jackson's birthday as her password since forever. What I found confirmed my worst fears. Our life insurance policy had been quietly modified 3 months ago, increasing the payout to $2 million. The beneficiary had been changed from Amanda and Jackson Norton to simply Amanda Norton. There were multiple searches in her history for Larson syndrome progression, untraceable poisons that mimic natural death, and most damning, how to make spouse's death look like natural causes. I found a series of text messages between her and Jackson stick to the plan. Remember what we discussed. Dad must never suspect. My hands trembled as I closed the laptop, and this time it was not from my condition. The people I loved most in this world, the ones I had devoted my life to protecting and providing for, were actively plotting my demise. Over the next weeks, my investigation continued as my health mysteriously deteriorated more rapidly. Amanda suddenly became extraordinarily attentive, insisting on preparing all my meals herself and administering my medications personally. I began secretly spitting out pills when she was not looking and only pretending to eat the food she prepared. Through careful observation, I noticed Amanda taking frequent calls in our garage, speaking in hushed tones. One afternoon, while she was grocery shopping, I discovered a burner phone hidden in her jewelry box, with only one number in its contact list, Dr. Willis. My paranoia grew as rapidly as my symptoms. Were my tremors worse because of my actual condition, or was I being slowly poisoned? Was Dr. Willis complicit, deliberately misdiagnosing me, or prescribing medications that would hasten my decline rather than help? The worst discovery came when I overheard Jackson on the phone with his friend Tyler. "Yeah, my dad is probably not going to make it to Christmas," he said casually, as if discussing the weather. "Mom says once he is gone, we can finally move somewhere better. Maybe California." The betrayal cut deeper than any physical pain. How had my son become so callous? What had Amanda told him to turn him against me? Or had I somehow failed him so completely that my death represented nothing more than a windfall after a particularly bad episode that left me bedridden for 2 days? I called my mother in Arizona. At 72, Margaret Norton was still sharp as a tack and fiercely protective of her only child. "Something is not right with Amanda," she declared, within hours of arriving for her visit. "She is too perfect, too attentive, and she will not let me be alone with you for more than 5 minutes." Mom helped me connect with Mike Denton, an old friend who had left construction to become a private investigator. With his help, I began gathering evidence. Hidden cameras in our kitchen captured Amanda grinding unknown substances into my food. Voice recorders documented conversations between her and Dr. Willis about accelerating the timeline because the insurance company might get suspicious. The final piece came when I discovered a draft obituary for me on Amanda's laptop dated 2 weeks in the future. It praised her devotion as a caregiver and mentioned charitable donations in lieu of flowers to be sent to a foundation I had never heard of. An account I later discovered was controlled by Amanda herself. I had all the evidence I needed. The wife I had loved for 15 years and the son I had raised from birth were actively working to murder me for insurance money. My breaking point came during a particularly severe pain episode that sent me to the hospital. As I lay in the emergency room, Dr. Willis spoke quietly with Amanda in the hallway, unaware that I could hear every word. "The tests are showing unusual compounds in his bloodstream," a nurse told Dr. Willis. "We need to run toxicology." I will handle his case personally. Dr. Willis responded smoothly. Mr. Norton has a complex condition that requires specialized interpretation of results. But protocol requires. I said I will handle it. His tone left no room for argument. That night, I executed the first phase of the plan Mike and I had developed. While Amanda was getting coffee, I switched the hospital's contact information to Mike's number. Then I had a friend from my support group help me leave the hospital undetected. For the next 72 hours, I was officially missing. From a motel room across town, Mike and I watched via remotely accessed hospital security cameras as Amanda put on an Oscar-worthy performance of the worried wife. She sobbed dramatically for the nurses, pleaded with police to find me, and gave tearful interviews to local news stations about her missing, gravely ill husband. Jackson's reaction was more complex. The cameras captured him sitting alone in the hospital waiting room, his expression confused and frightened, rather than performatively grief-stricken. When Amanda was not around, he seemed genuinely distressed, nothing like the co-conspirator I had imagined. On the third day, I made my move. With police detectives waiting outside, I returned to our home where Amanda was resting according to her social media updates about my disappearance. In reality, she was packing suitcases and gathering our important documents. Going somewhere, I asked from the doorway of our bedroom. She screamed, then ran to embrace me, tears flowing. "Hugh, oh my God. Where have you been? We have been so worried." "Have you really?" I asked, stepping away from her touch. "Or were you worried? Your plan was falling apart." Her face transformed instantly, the mask of concern replaced by calculation. "What are you talking about? You are not making sense. The medication must be affecting your mind. The medication you have been grinding into my food, or the actual poison you have been adding to it." I pulled out my phone and played a recording her voice discussing with Dr. Willis how much longer it would take for the treatment to finish the job. "That is not what you think," she began, but I cut her off. "Save it, Amanda. The police have everything, toxicology reports, showing substances in my system that match what was found in our kitchen recordings of your conversations, your searches for untraceable poisons. It is over." What I did not expect was for Jackson to walk in at that moment, returning from school. His face drained of color as he looked between us. "Dad." His voice cracked. "They said you were missing. That you might be." He trailed off, tears welling in his eyes. Amanda immediately switched tactics. "Jackson, your father is very confused. His condition is affecting his mind. He is making terrible accusations because he is ill." I turned to my son, heartbreaking at the confusion on his face. "Jackson, did you know what your mother was doing? Did you understand what was happening when you discussed the insurance money?" His eyes widened. What Mom said the insurance was to pay for your treatments. She said we were helping you." In that moment, I realized my son had been manipulated as thoroughly as I had been. Amanda had fed him a narrative where their actions were helping me, not harming me. The betrayal was hers alone. As if sensing her story collapsing, Amanda lunged for her purse. Before anyone could react, she pulled out a syringe. "This was supposed to be for you," she hissed, advancing toward me. "One final dose to end your suffering. To end all our suffering." The commotion brought the waiting police officers bursting through the door. As they restrained Amanda, the stress and days of hiding triggered a genuine episode. My legs buckled, darkness closing in, as my system finally reacted to the cocktail of toxins and stress. My last conscious thought was Jackson's terrified face hovering over me as he screamed for the paramedics. I woke 3 days later in the hospital. Real doctors not connected to Dr. Willis had flushed the poisons from my system and started me on legitimate treatments for my condition. The first face I saw was my mother's, lined with worry but smiling through tears. "You gave us quite a scare," she said, squeezing my hand. "But the doctors say you will recover. The damage was not permanent." Amanda, Dr. Willis. My voice was raspy from the intubation. "Both arrested. The evidence was overwhelming. That investigator friend of yours made sure of it. And Jackson, Her expression softened. Staying with Amanda's sister for now. The poor boy is devastated. He truly had no idea what his mother was doing. She told him the whispered conversations were about surprise treatments they were arranging for you, that the insurance money would save your life not. She could not finish the sentence. He believed he was helping me. I whispered, relief and heartbreak mingling. Children trust their parents. Mom said simply, even when they should not. The road to recovery was long and painful in ways both physical and emotional. After being discharged from the hospital, I accepted my mother's invitation to move to Arizona with her. The dry heat seemed to ease some of my nerve pain, and being away from Portland meant escaping the pitying looks and whispered gossip. My actual condition, properly diagnosed by uncompromised doctors, was indeed Larsen syndrome. But with proper medication and physical therapy, my symptoms became manageable. The rapid deterioration I had experienced had been largely due to the poisons Amanda had been administering, not the underlying condition itself. Amanda and Dr. Willis both faced charges of attempted murder insurance fraud and medical malpractice. The evidence Mike had gathered left no room for reasonable doubt. According to my lawyer, both were likely facing decades in prison. Jackson remained with his Aunt Jenny, Amanda's younger sister, who had always been kind to me. She reported that he was in therapy trying to process the betrayal by his mother and his unwitting role in her scheme. He refused all contact with Amanda, and to my continuing heartbreak with me as well. Give him time, Jenny advised during our weekly phone calls. He associates you with the worst trauma of his life. He needs to heal. So, I focused on my own healing. I joined a support group for survivors of medical abuse and domestic violence, sharing my story to help others recognize the warning signs I had missed. I volunteered at a center, helping men escape abusive relationships, breaking the stigma that kept so many silent about their suffering. For 6 months, I rebuilt my life piece by piece. I found part-time work consulting on construction projects remotely. I made new friends through my support group. I even started dating again, though nothing serious developed. The betrayal had left scars that needed more time to fade. Then exactly 6 months and 2 weeks after I had left Portland, my phone rang with Jackson's number. The voicemail he left changed everything. Please come home, Dad. Mom will not eat. She just stares at the wall. They say she had a breakdown in prison. I am staying with Aunt Jenny, but I need to talk to you. Please. The conflict tore at me. Part of me wanted nothing to do with Amanda's problems. Let her stare at walls forever for what she had done. Another part ached to reconnect with my son, to explain that I had never abandoned him, only the toxic situation. After 3 days of deliberation, I boarded a plane back to Portland. Jenny met me at the airport, Jackson, hanging back awkwardly by the car. He has been through so much, she warned quietly. Be patient. The reunion was painful, stilted. At 15, Jackson looked both older and younger than his age gray faced with worry, but his eyes holding a wariness that no child should carry. I did not know were his first words to me. I swear I did not know she was hurting you. She told me we were helping you access experimental treatments, that the insurance was for a special program that would cure you. I know, I said, fighting the urge to hug him. I never blamed you, but I should have seen it. There were signs. She was your mother. You trusted her. Any child would have. Over the following days, Jackson slowly opened up about the months after my departure. How Amanda had written him manipulative letters from prison, alternating between guilt trips and claims of innocence. How he had finally visited her, only to find her nearly catatonic, responding to her own internal stimuli rather than his presence. The doctors say she had a psychotic break, he explained. That sometimes happens when people who have done terrible things finally face consequences. Do you want me to see her? I asked, dreading the answer. He shook his head. No, that is not why I called you. I called because I need to know if you still want to be my dad. After everything, the question broke something loose in me. Jackson, I never stopped being your dad. Not for 1 second. What happened was, between your mother and me, it changes nothing about how I feel about you. For the first time since my return, he cried. Great, heaving sobs that seemed to come from the very center of him. I held my son as he purged months of fear, guilt, and uncertainty. We decided together that Jackson would come live with me and my mother in Arizona after the school year ended. A fresh start for both of us away from the shadows that Portland now held. Amanda would receive the treatment she needed in a secure psychiatric facility, but neither of us felt obligated to remain tethered to her illness or her crimes. The path forward was not without obstacles. Trust once shattered rebuilds slowly. There were nights when I still woke in cold sweats, phantom pains shooting through my limbs. Days when Jackson's resemblance to his mother would catch me off guard, triggering unwanted memories. But we learned to communicate honestly about these moments, to acknowledge the trauma without letting it define our future, to recognize that healing is not linear, but a series of steps forward and occasional steps back. Life had taught me that sometimes you have to lose everything to discover what truly matters. The betrayal that nearly cost me my life ultimately gave me something precious, authentic connection. With my son, with myself, with a future built on truth rather than illusion. I no longer hide my condition or my story. Both are part of who I am, scars that remind me of my resilience rather than my victimhood. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after betrayal? Leave a comment below, sharing what helped you find strength again. And if this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more journeys through life's darkest moments into the light that follows. Share with someone who might need to hear that survival is possible, even when those closest to you become your greatest threat. Thank you for listening, and remember, your worth is not determined by those who failed to see it.